Dear Radiant Leo, someone may be offering to help you, but not because they want you to rise. They want you to rely on them. And that, my brave friend, is the warning you're here to receive today. In the first few seconds of this video, I want to be clear: the purpose of what you're about to experience is not entertainment. It's a divine interception. A spiritual redirection. What you're about to hear is a message from the universe, arriving exactly when you need it most, not a moment too late, not a moment too soon. You did not land on this video by accident. You were called here. Perhaps you've recently crossed paths with someone new. Or maybe someone from your past has resurfaced. They're charming. Compassionate. They seem to say all the right things. But something inside you, quiet but persistent, whispers, something feels off. And that voice inside you is not paranoia. It's perception. Let me ask you something, Leo. Have you ever accepted help that made you feel weaker instead of stronger? Have you ever been comforted only to later realize you were being subtly controlled? Have you ever been loved in a way that made you forget your own power? If you've said yes, or even paused to think about it, then this message is your confirmation. It's time to look deeper, not at their words, but at their intent. The tarot today opens with the Strength card, your card. It speaks of inner resilience, silent endurance, and the courage to confront what hides behind the mask of kindness. You are standing in your power right now, Leo. But that power is being tested. The universe is placing someone in your path, not to save you but to challenge you. They will offer what looks like help. But they will hope you become dependent on them in return. This is not support. This is spiritual sabotage in disguise. But here's what they don't understand. You were born with fire in your bones. You don't need saving. You need remembering. And if these words stir something inside you, if your heart is racing a little faster, if your breath is caught somewhere between anxiety and awakening, then leave a comment below and say, I see the truth now. Write those words to anchor your awareness. To claim your clarity. To affirm that you are no longer deceived by surface-level kindness. Before we go further, allow me to take a sacred pause and say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting your intuition and showing up for your own growth. Every like, every comment, every subscription you share helps expand this circle of truth we're building together. Your energy keeps this channel, Eternal Mindfulness, not just alive but purposeful. And believe me, dear Leo, you will want to stay until the very last second of this reading. What the universe is revealing today is extraordinary. It's not just about relationships, it's about reclaiming the throne of your own life. So tell me, what was it, Leo, that pulled you here today? What did your soul sense before your mind could explain it? Stay with me. Let's walk through this together. Leo, this moment in your journey is not about being tested by the world outside, but about the quiet encounter you're having with yourself. The Strength card, your card, your mirror doesn't roar with force or flare with ego. It hums with restraint. It whispers of the soft power it takes to tame the wildness within, the kind that no one else sees. While many may interpret strength as dominance or victory, in truth, it is the grace of knowing when not to react, when to hold back a word, when to cradle your own heart even when it wants to collapse. You have likely been moving through life lately with a noble kind of discipline, carrying yourself with dignity even as something quietly bleeds beneath the surface. That's the paradox of being Leo, so outwardly bright, magnetic, and bold, and yet often lonely in your glow. The image of a lion standing in the desert, chest held high, mane glowing under a burning sky, is powerful, but it's only half the truth. Inside, the heart may be aching, still healing from a betrayal, a disappointment, or the slow erosion of being misunderstood for too long. The Nine of Pentacles reflects the person you've cultivated yourself to be: self-sufficient, elegant in your independence, a builder of your own sanctuary. You have refined your boundaries, chosen growth over chaos, and curated a life that many may envy. Paired with the Queen of Wands, your energy is undeniably radiant. You attract attention effortlessly, not because you seek it, but because you are aligned with your own essence. Yet this beauty of spirit, this inner royalty, can also become a magnet for those who are drawn not to love you but to feed off of you. Sometimes, those who lack their own center are attracted to those who shine brightly. They come close under the guise of admiration, support, or even love, but subtly, slowly, they ask you to shrink. They encourage you to lean on them in moments of weakness, but not to rise again in full strength. This is why the very first caution in this reading isn't about danger in the obvious sense. It's about what happens when someone offers you help but secretly hopes you'll become dependent on them. There is a saying, one that reminds us, the one who truly loves you is not the one who makes you forget your pain, but the one who gives you the courage to face it. And this is the deeper invitation of strength. Not to be numb, not to be stoic, but to sit with your pain without letting it rule you. To breathe with the discomfort and know that your value has never wavered, even in the storm. What you're feeling now is not weakness, it is proof that your heart is alive, sensitive, and still learning how to trust its own rhythm. Right now, you may feel as though you're standing at a crossroads, one that asks you whether you want to continue carrying everything on your own, or whether you're ready to let someone in. But here's the truth: you don't need someone to save you, you need someone who doesn't try to fix you. You need someone who sees your strength, even when you're curled up in vulnerability, and says, "You are enough even like this." And until that person appears, or even if they never do, you must become that voice for yourself. In moments of silence, when the world is still and your thoughts begin to unravel, remember that your lionheart was never designed to beg for validation. It was built to rise in stillness, to command without demand, and to walk with the quiet authority of someone who has already survived themselves. So when someone steps forward now, offering kindness, pause. Not with fear, but with discernment. Look not at what they say, but at how you feel around them. If your light dims in their presence, no matter how sweet their words, trust that. Because your light is not something to be borrowed. It is something to be honored. And you, Leo, were born to be honored. Sometimes, the ones who seem to arrive just when we feel most broken aren't here to heal us, they're here to reflect the very lesson we're trying not to learn. When the Page of Wands appears alongside the Lovers, it's easy to feel hopeful. The energy is light, charming, curious. There's an air of excitement, a flirtation with possibilities. This is the kind of connection that ignites quickly, often appearing in the midst of emotional rubble just after everything has come undone. That's no accident. After the tower has crumbled and the sharp edges of the Ten of Swords still ache in your back, your spirit naturally seeks something soften the fall. And often, that's when a person enters with warm eyes, a gentle voice, and just enough attention to feel like relief. But here is where the nuance begins. Because relief is not the same as healing. Attention is not the same as care. And what feels like love in the aftermath of destruction might actually be a test in disguise. When the moon card stands at the center of a reading, it does so like a veil drawn between what is seen and what is true. The moon doesn't lie, it simply distorts. It bathes the landscape in half-light, where shadows play tricks and reflections can't be trusted. Under its influence, emotions surge and perception falters. You may feel like you're being offered clarity, but in reality, you're only seeing what your heart desperately wants to believe. That's why this person's arrival cannot be taken at face value. They may not have ill intentions in the obvious sense. They may not even realize the role they're playing in your journey. But that's the nature of these dynamics. When we are wounded, we attract mirrors, people who vibrate at the same frequency of the pain we haven't yet integrated. And while it may feel like destiny, what's actually happening is that your subconscious is seeking resolution. Not through stillness, but through repetition. This is why it's vital to pause and look closely at how you feel in their presence, not what they say, but what shifts in you when they're near. Do you feel grounded or anxious? Do you feel seen or studied? The Page of Swords lurking in the background of this story is not an obvious villain, it's the energy of silent observation, curiosity tinged with calculation. It watches for your vulnerability and waits for the perfect moment to speak the words you've longed to hear. But longing is not a compass. If you follow it blindly, it leads you in circles. In teachings of ancient wisdom, we are reminded that the mind is like a river, it will follow the path of least resistance, unless trained. When we are not fully conscious of our own internal landscape, we will mistake familiarity for fate. And someone who triggers our emotional memory can feel like a soulmate, when they are in fact an echo from a pattern we've yet to break. So when this person appears, and for many of you, they already haven't rushed to name the connection. Don't call it love just because it arrives when you're lonely. Instead, ask yourself, does this feel like expansion, or does it feed the part of me that wants to be rescued? The answer may not be immediate. That's okay. It's not about making a decision right now. It's about being present enough with yourself to observe what you would otherwise react to. Because when you can sit in the presence of someone else without abandoning your own center, that is when you begin to master the art of discernment. You are not here to repeat what has already hurt you. You are here to recognize it in new form, and walk away with wisdom instead of wounds. Let that be your strength now. Let that be your guide. When someone from your past suddenly reappears, it rarely happens without reason. The Six of Cups often stirs up memories that feel soft around the edges, nostalgic, sweet, familiar. And yet, not all familiarity is safe. Sometimes, we mistake what is familiar for what is right, simply because it soothes our fear of uncertainty. When paired with the King of Wands, this returning figure presents themselves as bold, magnetic, perhaps more self-assured than before. They may speak with more clarity, carry themselves with confidence, and say the words you once longed to hear. They wear the costume of growth. But behind it, the energy of the Knight of Wands lingers, quick to act, eager to pursue, but rarely rooted. This is where your deeper awareness is needed. Because when both the past and something new arrive at the same time, it isn't a coincidence. It's a mirror. A crossroad. A test of what you've truly healed and what you're still drawn to repeat. The person from your past may not intend to pull you backward, but their presence evokes something powerful, something that asks you to look inward and ask yourself whether you're reaching out because you're ready or because you're lonely. The question is subtle but profound. Am I choosing this person because they feel aligned with who I am now or because they once knew who I used to be? The Emperor energy they display suggests structure, maturity, maybe even stability. But the emotional undercurrent of the Knight of Wands suggests they may still be impulsive, acting from desire rather than devotion. You may feel flattered by their attention, comforted by their timing, but timing isn't always divinite, can also be strategic. A part of you might want to believe they've changed. And perhaps they have. But the truth is, your evolution isn't measured by their transformation. It's measured by your ability to see clearly, without the haze of past emotion clouding your inner compass. Imagine standing between two doors. One whispers the soft song of your history, calling you back into something you've known even if it once hurt. The other glows with potential, but asks you to step forward without guarantees. Both require trust. But only one demands growth. There's a teaching that speaks to this exact moment. When you stand in uncertainty, do not act from desire, but from clarity. Desire is reactive. Clarity is responsive. When you choose from clarity, you don't abandon yourself for the sake of comfort. You ask, who am I becoming and does this path honor that? You may find yourself tempted to open your heart to what is easy, what is familiar, what once felt like love. But ask yourself, does this connection feed your future or only echo your past? The return of someone familiar is not inherently wrong. It may bring healing, or closure, or even second chances. But you must ensure that it does not come at the cost of your progress. This is not a warning rooted in fear, but in discernment. You are not who you were. Your heart has been through fire, and it has emerged softer but stronger. You do not need to retrace the same steps to prove that you've learned the lesson. Sometimes, real transformation is not about choosing again, it's about choosing differently. So when that familiar face reappears, let stillness guide your first response. Breathe. Observe. Ask yourself, not whether they deserve another chance, but whether you are willing to risk your peace to find out. If the answer feels shaky, trust that. Because the truth is, love that returns with real intention will never ask you to shrink. And if it does, you already know which door to close. There are moments in life when love doesn't arrive as a grand revelation, but as a soft echo of everything we've quietly longed for. And yet, in those very moments, we are most vulnerable, not because we are weak, but because the space within us that seeks connection is wide open, like dry earth aching for water. The Ace of Cups in a reading feels like a blessing. It signals renewal, emotional openness, and the possibility of something beautiful beginning. But when it is flanked by the Seven of Swords and the Magician, that beauty becomes complex. What appears as love may, in truth, be strategy wrapped in sweetness. What feels like salvation might only be seduction by illusion. It's easy to be captivated by the Knight of Cups. They speak with tenderness. They know how to listen. They understand timing. They don't push, they appear at just the right moment, when your heart is tender, when you're quietly questioning your worth, when the pieces of your past have only just begun to reassemble. They offer affection as if it were medicine, and it's tempting to believe they're exactly what you needed. But here is where we begin to examine the space between intention and impact. Not every gift is freely given. Not every comforting word comes without an unspoken price. The Seven of Swords carries a subtle energy. It rarely announces itself loudly. It weaves itself between moments. A withheld truth here. A carefully chosen phrase there. And while it doesn't always look like deception, it feels like dissonance, a quiet tug in your intuition, reminding you that something is just slightly off. And the magician, when in shadow, is not just the master of manifestation, but the master of illusion. They know how to mirror your desires. They say what aligns with your narrative. But they aren't giving you clarity theory feeding your fantasy. They touch the part of you that wants to believe and hope again, and they build just enough emotional scaffolding for you to lean on without ever giving you anything solid to stand on. Imagine a flower blooming in the middle of a desert. It's striking, unexpected, breathtaking. And yet, something inside you hesitates. Could it truly survive in such a place? Is it real, or is it merely surviving off the mirage of your own longing? When someone fills a void within you by pretending to be the answer to it, you are not being loved, you are being studied. They observe what you're missing and step in as the solution, but not to heal you, instead, to make sure you need them to feel whole. And dependency disguised as romance is the most dangerous kind, because it doesn't wound you with cruelty, it binds you with comfort. It takes great strength to admit that something beautiful may not be good. It takes even more to walk away from what you once called love when you realize it's built on emotional leverage. But freedom begins with honesty. And emotional maturity is not just knowing what you feel, it's being able to question why you feel it, and whether that feeling is coming from trust or from the desire to escape loneliness. The truth is, someone who truly loves you will not try to rescue you from your solitude just to plant themselves at the center of your healing. They will walk beside you, not ahead of you. They will honor your pace, not manipulate your timing. And most importantly, they will never make your self-worth feel like it depends on their presence. So the next time you feel seen, ask yourself, am I being seen for who I am, or for what they believe I need? There is a difference. And your heart, when still, knows exactly which one is true. After everything you've endured, every unraveling, every hard truth, every quiet ache you carried in silence, you are now standing at the threshold of a new era within yourself. Justice arrives not just as a symbol of fairness, but as a mirror of balance. It reflects all the effort you've invested in choosing yourself, even when it felt like the world around you didn't. And now, with the star by its side, there is a kind of soft, sacred light breaking through. This is the energy of renewal, not the kind that demands grand declarations, but the kind that wraps around you like morning air, subtle and undeniable. You are being called to rise, but not in the way you once did, with urgency, with fire, with fight. Now, it's about clarity. The Ace of Swords speaks of that clarity. Of the moment when fog lifts, and you see not only the path ahead, but the truth within. The Empress reminds you that you were never meant to chase growth, it was always meant to emerge from you, naturally, abundantly, when the soil of your inner world was finally rich enough to hold it. You are blooming now. But as with all things that flower, not every hand that reaches toward you comes in admiration. Some come with hunger. Some come with intention that is not immediately seen. This is why the Fool reversed is not merely a warning, it is a pause. A breath before the leap. It asks you to look at what you're calling freedom, and whether it's just another escape disguised in prettier clothes. Are you choosing this next step because it truly aligns with your wholeness? Or are you drawn to it because it offers distraction from what still feels unsteady inside? The difference between moving forward and running away is often one quiet question: am I being pulled by purpose or pushed by fear? The Empress does not bloom because she is running. She blooms because she is rooted. And so must you be. There is an image that has followed you through this reading of a lioness, regal and composed, stepping toward her coronation. But in her court, hidden among those who bow, is someone holding a poison they call perfume. Their flattery is not love. Their presence is not safety. And your task now is not to fear them, but to recognize that the test is never about them, it's about whether you trust yourself enough to see what doesn't serve you, even when it arrives with a smile. The universe is not asking you to be suspicious, it's asking you to be awake. To no longer sacrifice your vision for the illusion of companionship. The truth is, there is something magnificent unfolding in you right now. The star is not a symbol of what's ahead. It's the confirmation that it's already begun. But that magnificence, that new beginning, requires you to walk with awareness. Because as you expand, you'll be asked to choose again and again: am I walking in truth, or in comfort? Am I following alignment, or am I settling into familiar shadows that feel easier to manage? This is the final turning point in your reading. And it doesn't ask you for more effort. It asks for more honesty. You don't need to prove your strength. You simply need to trust that your clarity are clean, precise, no wingies enough to guide you now. And the moment you begin choosing from that place, you'll notice it, the noise quiets. The falsehoods fall away. And what's left is you, steady, luminous, and entirely in your power. There's a moment in every soul's journey when we must gently but firmly reclaim the truth: you are not here to be rescued. You are here to remember. To remember that the light you've been searching for in others has always lived within you. And sometimes, it takes being tested by false promises, by hollow help, by those who offer support with invisible strings to awaken that inner knowing. This message today is not meant to make you suspicious of love or wary of connection. It's meant to bring you home. Back to the place within where your power has never wavered, only waited for your return. So if someone enters your life now with charm, softness, and a willingness to help, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself not what do they offer, but what do they awaken in me? Do they reflect my growth, or do they pull me back into my old self? True support never makes you doubt your autonomy. It never asks you to shrink. It never makes you feel indebted just to feel seen. You, Leo, are the embodiment of solar strength. You were not made to orbit around someone else's approval. You are the sun. You were born to illuminate, not to seek light, but to be it. And right now, your soul is asking you to choose from that place. Not out of fear. Not out of emotional hunger. But from clarity. From vision. From the higher self you've worked so hard to meet. This isn't just about one person, or one situation. It's about reclaiming a lifelong pattern of mistaking intensity for intimacy, or rescue for love. And that stops now because you see it now. You feel it. And because you're ready to rise without asking permission. So in the coming days, I invite you to ground into yourself with small, loving choices. Nourish your body with rest and balanced nutrition. Try reducing sugar for the next 3 days, and include supportive elements like zinc and vitamin B to boost your energy. In your finances, hold your vision close. This is not the time to lend money or share sensitive plans. Stay inward, protected. In love, give space between your reaction and your response. If someone reaches out, take a moment. Let your heart catch up with your logic. Let your wisdom lead. And in work, if a new path or opportunity emerges, wonderful. But don't leap until your foundation feels stable. Let your decisions come from power, not pressure. You don't need to say yes just because it looks good. You don't need to explain when you say no. The Empress doesn't justify. The Queen of Wands doesn't shrink. And strength your cardoas and ask for approval. It simply holds steady. And now I want to hear from you. What part of today's message resonated most deeply? Was it the moment you recognized the mask of help? Or was it the quiet realization that you've always been whole? Share your reflection in the comments with the words, "I am the light within my own story." Let those words not just echo but anchor. And if this message stirred something in you, if it helped you come back to your center, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness. Every comment, every interaction not only supports this growing community of conscious souls but also affirms your own commitment to walking your path in truth and integrity. You are not here to be saved. You are here to remember that you never needed to be. And I promise, Leo, the moment you fully stand in that truth is the moment everything begins to shift. Stay close. Stay sovereign. And above all, stay luminous.